Sir, the nurse smiled as she opened the door. Your wife has been waiting 24 days to see you. My husband looked at me. His eyes searched my face. Then he said something that stopped my heart. I'm sorry. I think you've got the wrong room. I forced a smile. Ethan, it's me. He looked embarrassed. I wish I knew who you were. The doctor stepped between us. Mrs. Brooks, I think we need to talk. I watched my husband, the man I'd been married to for 11 years, look at me like I'd never existed. And in that moment, I realized surviving the accident was only the beginning of our nightmare. Hit the subscribe button, because forgetting me wasn't even the worst part. What comes next will break your heart twice. If you'd met my husband before the accident, you would have understood why people trusted him so easily. He listened more than he spoke. He never raised his voice just to win an argument. And if he gave you his word, you could stop worrying because he would keep it. That's the man I married. For 11 years, we built a life that wasn't flashy, but it was ours. I taught English at a public high school. He ran a growing architectural design firm that he'd started with nothing more than a second-hand laptop and an impossible amount of determination. There were months when we counted every dollar before buying groceries. There were also months when we'd surprise Ava with a weekend trip just because she'd finished another stack of library books. Our daughter believed every family spent Friday nights the same way. Takeout on the coffee table, blankets on the couch. A movie none of us actually watched because we talked through most of it. Those nights never felt important until they became memories. Wednesday, September 14th, started like every other workday. I was packing Ava's lunch while Ethan searched the kitchen for his car keys. They're in your jacket, I said without looking up. They can't be. They are. A second later, he laughed from the hallway. I don't know whether to thank you or be worried. You should be worried. He walked back into the kitchen, leaned over the counter, and stole a strawberry from Ava's lunchbox. Dad, she folded her arms. That's stealing. It's quality control. It's my favorite. Exactly. She sighed dramatically before handing him another one. Now we're even. He winked at her. Then he looked at me. Don't make dinner tonight. I frowned. Why? He smiled. Because I already made reservations. I stared at him blankly. For what? His eyebrows lifted. Our anniversary. I closed my eyes. I forgot. I noticed. I'm the worst wife. I didn't say that. You were thinking it. He laughed. No. I was thinking I'd married the busiest teacher in the state. He kissed my forehead. I'll pick up flowers after work. You don't need flowers. I know. He smiled. I just like the way you pretend you don't. That was the last conversation we ever had before everything changed. At 4:17 that afternoon, my phone rang while I was grading essays. The number wasn't saved. I almost ignored it. I'm speaking with Mrs. Brooks. Yes. My name is Officer Daniel Ortiz. His voice was calm. Too calm. There's been an accident involving your husband's vehicle. The pen slipped from my hand. He was transported to St. Mary's Medical Center. I need you to come immediately. I don't remember leaving the classroom. I don't remember the drive. I only remember praying at every red light. When I reached the emergency department, a surgeon met me before I could ask a single question. Your husband suffered a severe head injury. Is he alive? Yes. The word hit me so hard my knees nearly gave out. But the next 48 hours will be critical. Everything after that became a blur of waiting rooms, sleepless nights, and machines that never seemed to stop beeping. On the 24th day, the doctor finally walked toward me with a smile. Mrs. Brooks, your husband just woke up. I thought the nightmare was finally over. I had no idea. It was only beginning. The nurse was waiting outside Ethan's room. She smiled the moment she saw me. He's been asking questions all morning. I laughed through my tears. Is he okay? He's confused, she said gently. But that's expected. After 24 days. Confused sounded like a miracle. She opened the door. Mr. Brooks, she said softly. Your wife is here. Ethan turned toward the doorway. His eyes met mine. For one beautiful second, I thought I had my husband back. Then the look disappeared. He frowned. I'm sorry. His voice was weak and raspy. Have we met? I smiled, convinced he was joking. It's me. I stepped closer. Nora. Nothing. No flicker of recognition. No smile. Just the polite expression you'd give a stranger. The doctor rested a hand on my shoulder. Let's not overwhelm him. I shook my head. It's okay. They told me this might happen. I reached for Ethan's hand. He gently pulled it away. Not because he was angry. Because he didn't know me. I'm sorry, he whispered. I don't think you're my wife. The room fell silent. I felt my heart pounding against my ribs. Ethan, we've been married for 11 years. He looked genuinely confused. I've never been married. The doctor exchanged a glance with the nurse before stepping closer. Ethan, what year do you believe this is? He answered immediately. 2011. The doctor wrote something in his chart. And how old are you? 28. You work as an architect? He nodded. I just started as a junior designer. Do you remember owning your own architectural firm? He frowned. No, I've never owned a business. The doctor continued asking questions. Each answer belonged to a man who had lived 15 years earlier. Finally, he asked one last question. Is there someone important you'd like us to call? My parents. The doctor's expression softened. Ethan, your parents passed away several years ago. Ethan stared at him. No. His voice was firm. That's impossible. I had dinner with them last Sunday. The room became painfully quiet. The doctor slowly closed his notebook. Thank you, Ethan. We'll let you get some rest. He gently guided me into the hallway before closing the door. I looked at him, barely able to speak. I've heard of memory loss. But this? He nodded. Your husband hasn't forgotten who he is. He's forgotten who he became. I stared at him. What does that mean? We believe the trauma caused his memory to regress approximately 15 years. My knees weakened. So everything after that? He nodded. As far as Ethan is concerned, it never happened. Our marriage, our home, our business, our daughter. He has no memory of any of it. I covered my mouth before the sob escaped. At that moment, my phone began to ring. It was Ava. I answered as steadily as I could. Hi, sweetheart. Mom. Her little voice was full of hope. Can I finally talk to Dad? I closed my eyes. How could I tell my daughter that her father hadn't forgotten her birthday, or forgotten to call her, or forgotten that he loved her? He had forgotten that she had ever been born. I didn't let Ava visit the hospital that day. How could I? How do you prepare a 10-year-old girl to meet a father who would look at her like a stranger? I told her Daddy was still too tired for visitors. It was the first lie I'd ever told my daughter. That night, I sat beside Ethan's bed while he slept. His wedding band was still on his finger. I gently turned it with my thumb. He opened his eyes. What are you doing? I smiled. Nothing. He looked down at the ring. That's strange. What is? I don't wear jewelry. My heart sank. You've worn that ring every day for 11 years. He slid it off and placed it on the bedside table. It isn't mine. To him, it wasn't. The following morning, the neurologist called for a family meeting. There are two things we need to focus on, she said. His physical recovery and rebuilding his memory. How long will that take? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. It varies. Some patients recover in weeks. Others take months. And some, she stopped, never recover those missing years. The room became painfully quiet. Before I could ask another question, someone knocked. A familiar voice called from the hallway. Nora. I turned. It was Ethan's younger brother, Logan. He hurried over and hugged me. I came as soon as I heard. When he stepped into Ethan's room, his smile disappeared. Ethan. It's me, Logan. Ethan stared for several seconds before smiling. Little Logan? His brother laughed awkwardly. I haven't been little for a long time. I can see that. For the first time since waking up, Ethan looked genuinely happy. He remembered his brother, just not the man his brother had become. Later that afternoon, Logan found me in the hospital cafeteria. How bad is it? He remembers life from 15 years ago. Logan lowered his head. So, he doesn't remember the company? I frowned. No. Our house. No. Ava. I shook my head. He rubbed his forehead. This is worse than I thought. I expected him to ask about Ethan. Instead, his next question caught me off guard. Who's handling the business? I blinked. I haven't even thought about work. You need to. There are contracts, payroll, clients. I'll take care of it. I looked at him. You don't have to. I want to. He gave me a reassuring smile. Right now your place is here with Ethan. I'll make sure nothing falls apart. For the first time in days, someone had offered to help. I almost cried with relief. Thank you. He squeezed my shoulder. Family takes care of family. That evening, I told Ethan stories about our life together. How we met. Our first apartment. The day Ava was born. He listened politely. Sometimes he smiled. Sometimes he apologized. I wish I remembered. I know. I can see how much you love me. I looked at him. And I can see how much I'm hurting you. No. The accident did. He stared out the window. I hope whoever I become is someone worth remembering. I reached for his hand. This time, he didn't pull away. It wasn't because he remembered me. It was because, somewhere beneath 15 missing years, the man I'd married was still there. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Ethan's office manager, _. Her voice was shaking. Nora, I don't know what's happening, but Logan just walked into the office and told everyone he's taking control of the company. I sat upright. What? He said Ethan authorized it. I looked through the hospital room window. Ethan was asleep. He couldn't even remember owning the company. So who had given Logan that authority? I left the hospital without telling Ethan where I was going. For the first time since the accident, I wasn't thinking about his memory. I was thinking about his company. The receptionist looked relieved when I walked into the office. Mrs. Brooks, thank goodness. Where's Logan? In your husband's office. I frowned. My husband's office? She nodded. He moved in yesterday. Yesterday, the same day he'd promised to keep things running. I walked straight to Ethan's office. The door was closed. I pushed it open without knocking. Logan was sitting behind Ethan's desk. His laptop was open. Stacks of company files surrounded him. He looked up, surprised. Nora, what are you doing? He stood immediately. I was just handling a few urgent matters. From Ethan's chair? He hesitated. It didn't mean anything. It means everything. Silence filled the room. I noticed a leather folder lying open on the desk. Across the top page were the words, Temporary Executive Authorital. My eyes narrowed. What is this? Logan reached for the folder. It's just paperwork. I picked it up before he could. Halfway down the page, my stomach dropped. Signed, Ethan Brooks. I stared at the signature. It looked exactly like my husband's. When did he sign this? The hospital. The lawyer brought it. I looked up slowly. My husband doesn't remember owning this company. He thinks he's 28 years old. He doesn't even know this business exists. Logan avoided my eyes. The lawyer explained everything. Then why didn't anyone explain it to me? You've had enough to deal with. No. My voice became firmer. You decided I didn't need to know. He sighed. Nora, we could lose clients. Payroll has to go out. Someone had to make decisions. I agreed someone had to. I never agreed it had to be you. Before he could answer, a woman stepped into the doorway. She froze when she saw me. It was Grace, Ethan's executive assistant. She looked nervous. Mrs. Brooks. I turned to her. Did Ethan really sign these papers? Grace looked at Logan, then at me. She swallowed hard. Logan interrupted. Grace, it's fine. But she wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me, with guilt written all over her face. Finally, she whispered, I never saw Mr. Brooks sign anything. The room fell silent. I slowly lowered the folder. What did you say? Grace's hands trembled. I was asked to witness the signature. After the documents were already signed, I looked at Logan. His face had gone pale. You lied. It's not what you think. Then tell me what to think. You told me Ethan authorized this. You let me believe he understood what he was signing. He didn't. Logan opened his mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, I wasn't looking at my brother-in-law. I was looking at a man who had lied less than 24 hours after his own brother woke up from a coma. And something told me that wasn't the first lie he'd told. I took the folder and left the office. Logan called after me. Nora, wait. I didn't. For the first time since the accident, I wasn't afraid. I was angry. An hour later, I was sitting across from Ethan's attorney, Richard Hale. He'd worked with my husband for almost 8 years. If anyone knew what was happening, it was him. He looked uncomfortable the moment I placed the folder on his desk. I have one question, I said. Did Ethan sign this? Richard adjusted his glasses. He approved it. That's not what I asked. He looked away. Did he sign it knowing he was handing control of his company to Logan? I leaned forward. Richard, my husband thinks it's 2011. He doesn't know he owns a business. He doesn't know he has a daughter. He doesn't know I'm his wife. So tell me, how could he possibly understand a legal document about a company he doesn't even remember building? Richard slowly removed his glasses. He couldn't. My heart sank. So why did you let it happen? He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said quietly, because Logan insisted there wasn't another choice. I left his office with more questions than answers. On my way back to the hospital, my phone rang. It was Grace. Mrs. Brooks. I found something. What is it? I couldn't tell you at the office. Tell me now. I was organizing Mr. Brooks' emails before the accident. And There was a message he marked as urgent. I think you need to see it. Grace met me in the company's parking lot. She looked over both shoulders before handing me a flash drive. I made a copy. You shouldn't have. I know. But something hasn't felt right since the accident. What do you mean? She lowered her voice. The day after Mr. Brooks was hospitalized, Logan came into the office before anyone else. He asked me to give him full access to Ethan's email. Did you? I said I needed your husband's permission. And he smiled. Then she repeated the words that made the hair on my arms stand up. He won't remember saying no. I froze. What? He said your husband wouldn't remember anything anyway. Grace looked like she regretted ever hearing it. I've worked here for 6 years. I've never heard Logan talk like that. I tightened my grip on the flash drive. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I was scared. Of Logan? She nodded. No. She whispered. Of whoever's telling Logan what to do. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, I opened the flash drive on my laptop. There were dozens of ordinary work files. Budgets. Contracts. Client presentations. Then I found the email Grace had mentioned. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Richard, the attorney. The subject line read, "If anything ever happens to me." My hands trembled as I opened it. It was written 3 weeks before the accident. Richard, if I'm ever unable to make decisions for myself, Nora makes them. No exceptions. Don't let anyone, not even family, convince you otherwise. She knows this company as well as I do, and she's the only person I trust to protect what we've built. Ethan. I read it again. Then a third time. Tears blurred the screen. Ethan had already made his wishes clear. Logan knew it. Richard knew it. Yet somehow, the company had been handed to Logan anyway. I closed the laptop and looked through the hospital window at the man sleeping peacefully inside. He couldn't remember the life he'd built, but someone else remembered it perfectly, and they were using his silence to erase him from it. I printed Ethan's email. Then I made 3 copies. One stayed in my handbag. One went into a safe deposit box. The third, I handed to Richard. He read it in complete silence. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair. I should have stopped this. You should have. I thought Logan was trying to protect the company. And now, Richard looked me in the eye. Now I think I helped the wrong person. I stood. Then help me fix it. He nodded once. I will. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. Ethan was already awake. He was staring out the window. Good morning, I said. He smiled politely. I was waiting for you. Those 4 words caught me off guard. You were. I couldn't remember your name. He looked embarrassed. But I remembered your voice. A lump formed in my throat. It wasn't much, but it was something. I spent the morning showing him photographs. Our wedding. Ava's first birthday. Family vacations. Christmas mornings. He studied every picture carefully. Sometimes he asked questions. Sometimes he simply stared. Then he stopped at one photograph. It was Ava's 8th birthday. She was sitting on his shoulders, laughing. His fingers trembled. I know this little girl. I leaned forward. You do? He closed his eyes. I don't know how, but I know her laugh. Tears filled my eyes. Her name is Ava. He whispered it. Ava. As though the name had been waiting somewhere deep inside him. That afternoon, Richard called. I've been reviewing the company accounts. What did you find? There have been 9 transfers. My stomach felt uneasy. To who? Different companies. Were they legitimate? No. They all lead back to the same place. Where? He took a breath. A holding company. Owned by Logan. I stopped walking. How much? There was a long silence. Then, just over $3 million. I nearly dropped my phone. $3 million. Not in one transaction. Little by little. Hidden among supplier payments and project expenses. Someone hadn't panicked after Ethan's accident. Someone had planned this. That evening, Logan walked into the hospital carrying a fruit basket. He smiled when he saw Ethan. Hey, big brother. Ethan smiled back. Logan, you look better. I feel better. Logan glanced at me. Can I have a minute with him? I'd rather stay. It'll only take a second. Something about his tone unsettled me. I said I'll stay. He forced a smile. Fine. He pulled a chair closer to Ethan. I've been taking care of everything. Ethan nodded. Thank you. No need to thank me. It's what family does. Then Logan leaned closer. So don't worry yourself about work. You don't need to think about the company. Just focus on getting better. Ethan frowned. What company? Logan smiled. Exactly. A chill ran through me. He wasn't relieved that Ethan couldn't remember. He was depending on it. After Logan left, Ethan looked at me. Did I own a company? Yes. He was quiet for several seconds. Why didn't he want me asking about it? I looked toward the closed door. Because for the first time, Ethan had noticed it too. And somewhere down the hallway, Logan had no idea that the brother he thought was trapped in the past had just started asking questions. Richard wasted no time. The moment the forensic accountant confirmed Logan had transferred company funds into shell accounts, the court approved an emergency order freezing every account connected to him. Within hours, detectives had enough evidence to open a criminal investigation for fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. Logan found out before sunset. He drove straight to St. Mary's Medical Center. The doors to Ethan's floor burst open. He barely acknowledged the nurses calling after him. When he reached Ethan's room, Nora stepped into his path. You had no right. His voice echoed through the hallway. I had every right. You froze my accounts. You involved the police. You've destroyed everything. Nora refused to move. No. I stopped you from destroying Ethan's life. His jaw felt uneasy. You still don't understand. I understand more than you think. You forged Ethan's signature. You stole from his company. You lied to your own brother. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Logan laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because something inside him had finally broken. My brother? He shook his head slowly. You know what everyone called me growing up? Nora remained silent. Ethan's little brother. He pointed toward the hospital room. I wasn't Logan. I was the boy who was never as smart as Ethan. Never as talented as Ethan. Never successful enough to be Ethan. His voice rose. When I graduated, my parents asked if Ethan was coming. When I started my first business, they said Ethan would know how to make it profitable. When I bought my first house, they asked why it wasn't as nice as Ethan's. He swallowed hard. For 35 years, I came second. Years of bitterness poured out of him. Do you know what it's like to spend your entire life being introduced as someone else's brother? I worked just as hard. I sacrificed just as much. But no matter what I accomplished, the room always turned toward Ethan. His eyes filled with tears. And then, the accident happened. For the first time in my life, no one was asking where Ethan was. They were asking me. They needed me. I finally mattered. His voice cracked. So when I realized he couldn't remember, I decided I wasn't giving that feeling back. Inside the hospital room, every word reached Ethan. At first, they sounded distant. Then something changed. A sudden pressure exploded behind his eyes. He grabbed the side of the hospital bed. His breathing became uneven. Fragments of memories flashed through his mind. A young woman laughing across a crowded college library. Nora. Their first date. His proposal. Their wedding vows. Another memory crashed into him. A tiny newborn wrapped in a pink blanket. A nurse smiling. It's a girl. Ava. He remembered holding her against his chest. He remembered promising he would always protect her. More memories flooded in. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. Teaching Ava to ride a bicycle. Helping her with homework. Building blanket forts in the living room. Family movie nights. Then came the office. The day Brooks Architecture opened its doors. Hiring Grace. Winning his first major contract. Late nights studying blueprints. Laughing with his employees. Then, his email. If anything ever happens to me, Nora makes every decision regarding the company. Another flash. The anniversary morning. Ava accusing him of stealing her lunch. Nora pretending to take Ava's side. The kiss goodbye at the front door. The drive to work. Bright headlights. The deafening crash. Everything stopped. Everything returned. 15 years. Restored in seconds. Tears rolled down Ethan's face. He stared at the black wedding band on his finger. For weeks, it had belonged to a stranger. Now, it belonged to him again. His voice barely escaped above a whisper. Nora. Then, Ava. A smile mixed with tears. I remember. A long pause. I remember everything. He slowly stood. His body was still weak, but his mind had finally come home. He walked to the hospital room door. Outside, Logan was still standing in the hallway. Ethan opened the door. You could have had my respect. You didn't have to steal my life. The hallway fell silent. Logan turned slowly. Their eyes met. Shock spread across his face. Ethan. Ethan stepped forward. His voice remained calm. I never knew. You were carrying all of that. Logan looked away. You never noticed. You never had to. Everything came easy for you. Ethan slowly shook his head. No, it didn't. I just never stopped to see what it was costing you. For several seconds, neither brother spoke. Then Ethan took another step closer. But jealousy doesn't give you permission to betray the people who loved you. Logan's shoulders sagged. The anger that had fueled him for years disappeared. For the first time, he had no excuse. No words. The detectives approached. Logan Brooks, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and related financial crimes. They placed him in handcuffs. As they led him down the hallway, he looked back once. Not at the detectives. Not at Nora. Only at Ethan. Then he lowered his head. The brother who had spent his entire life chasing someone else's shadow walked away alone. The hallway finally became quiet. The detectives had gone. Logan was gone. For the first time in weeks. There was nothing left to fight. Only a family trying to find each other again. Ethan stood in the middle of the hospital room. His eyes never left Nora. Slowly, he walked toward her. I'm sorry. His voice trembled. I left for work that morning. I promised I'd be home for dinner. And when I woke up, I looked at the woman I loved, and I couldn't remember her. Tears rolled down Nora's face. She shook her head. You came back. That's all that matters. He gently cupped her face. I missed 15 years. I missed us. Nora smiled through her tears. No, you lived them. You just couldn't reach them. She wrapped her arms around him. This time, he held her the way he always had, like he never wanted to let go again. 3 days later, the doctors discharged Ethan. Outside the hospital, one little girl stood holding a handmade sign. Welcome home, Dad. Ava shifted nervously from one foot to the other. She wasn't sure what would happen. For weeks, the man she called Dad had looked at her like she was a stranger. Ethan stopped walking. His eyes filled with tears. He slowly knelt in front of her. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I remember everything now. The day you were born. The first time you called me Daddy. The training wheels. The science fair. The bedtime stories. The way you always stole the marshmallows out of my hot chocolate. Ava's lip trembled. You remember? He smiled. Every single moment. She threw herself into his arms. I missed you, Dad. I missed you too. He held her tighter than ever before. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for the time we lost. Ava pulled back and handed him the sign she'd been holding. Written underneath the large letters was a sentence in bright purple marker. It's okay that you forgot. I remembered enough for both of us. Ethan couldn't stop the tears. Neither could Nora. The following weeks were filled with interviews, financial audits, court hearings, and the slow process of rebuilding what had been stolen. Richard and Grace worked tirelessly to restore Brooks' architecture. Every forged document was overturned. Every fraudulent transfer was traced. Every stolen asset the law could recover was returned to the company. Months later, the court found Logan guilty of fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and related financial crimes. As the sentence was read, Logan never looked toward the gallery. Not because no one was there, because he couldn't bear to face the family he had betrayed. Life slowly found its rhythm again. One crisp Monday morning, Ethan walked through the doors of Brooks' architecture. The office looked exactly as he remembered. The blueprint table, the architectural models, the shelves, the sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Grace smiled. Welcome home, boss. The employees stood. Then, without anyone saying a word, the room filled with applause. Not because Ethan had returned as their CEO, because he had returned as himself. He looked around the office. For a moment, he remembered how close he had come to losing every one of these moments forever. He quietly whispered, I won't take any of this for granted again. That evening, the Brooks family sat around their dining table. No celebration, no speeches, just dinner. Exactly the way Ethan liked it. Halfway through the meal, Ava smiled mischievously. She reached across the table and stole a piece of chicken from Ethan's plate. He looked at her in mock surprise. Did you just steal my dinner? Ava grinned. No, I'm just performing quality control. Nora laughed. Ethan laughed. Ava laughed. It was the first time since the accident that their home sounded like itself again. Ethan looked around the table, at his wife, at his daughter, at the ordinary evening they almost lost. And he realized something. The company could be rebuilt. Money could be earned again. But the greatest miracle wasn't getting his business back. It was getting his family back. Sometimes, the people who betray us leave scars that never completely disappear. But love has a remarkable way of reminding us who we are, even when we forget ourselves.